to
Dude,
try to be as chill.
this is actually the thing. This makes me realize how valuable having Kyle here is. Because when we set this up, Kyle puts the headphones on and all of this is unspoken. We just start the show and it's nice and casual. But explaining this to Riley, even though he's good about it, stepping in on short notice, you know, Kyle,
Kyle's the
real
greatest of all
OG.
time.
He's a real OG when it comes to producing. But Holly, this isn't about Kyle. This is about you. This
Thank
is your episode. Tell the people who you are, what you're about, and what do you want to talk about today?
I really don't care what we talk about today. You texted and said that it can be absolutely anything. And so I was going with that route. But I am on here because I'm Harry's girlfriend. But I am currently 20 and I'm at uni. I do writing and publishing, so books. And I work as a receptionist and I work at a high school as a teacher.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of your passions is literature and writing.
Yes.
How'd you get into that? And then what are some of your biggest inspirations when it comes to authors and novelists?
So from age sort of like 6, I was picking up like full on novels, which was a little bit obviously abnormal. And I was like top of the little reading group at school. I had all my little stickers on the sticker chart, won all the little reading awards. And then that sort of started, like I wrote my first little poetry in year 4 and my teacher was like, you'd be an excellent writer. And then as I got older, I sort of drifted from reading and more just got into the actual writing side of things. But when I was looking at it for uni, I just didn't think that making a career out of being a writer or going to uni to study an art it's unnecessary. If you're going to be a musician, if you're going to be a writer, if you're going to be anything, I think you should just have that as your own side hustle and you write your book and you do your thing. You don't go and study that particularly. And so I was like, I want to get something from this that's a bit more sturdy and a bit more stable. And so that's why I was like, I'd love to be a publisher. And then I discovered that publishing was done in teams and there's a marketing strategist and there's an editor and there's someone who goes and does the travel press tour. And I was like, that's actually so much more interesting than I thought it was. And yeah, I went to a publishing event for a book and I met a publisher there and she gave me her email. And so looking at maybe an internship there next year.
Wow.
Be pretty cool.
No, that's super exciting.
Yeah.
And publishing, it's not only the publishing and the sale and the printing of the books as many people think of it as, it's the marketing as well and these campaigns. Tell us a little bit about behind the scenes when it comes to the marketing behind selling a book.
Well, yeah, so with the degree, because I'm majoring in writing and publishing, and then I've minored in journalism this year, which I thought was going to be really, really rewarding for me, but it's turning out that it's something that I'm not very interested in at all.
Do they have you doing current events or when it comes to studying journalism at school, what does that actually look like?
We're expected to stay very up to date with the news and everything. But there's just we're learning that very structured way of writing. Like, you know, you have your headline and then you start with a leading sentence that really hooks the audience in. And then you have your first part and your third part. And then the story gets less and less interesting as it goes on and you give all of the facts. And it's just it's on a formula. And I think if you're a creative writer, that's really quite awful.
Yes.
And obviously news can take its own different ways and, you know, be different, but general sort of the journalism that you get hired for and what the general journalist does is pretty formulaic and like pretty boring at the end of the day. And I just kind of realized that because I did that part of the degree to think about whether I would become a journalist instead. But there's just so many people in there trying to be journalists. And I'm like, this seems really oversaturated. And unfortunately, it's just so negative. Like, obviously, we can expect news to be negative, but I just think if I was sitting there every day and having to look into that and write about that, I would just become so depressed that it would just not be rewarding. And so as a result, next year I've decided to move to creative advertising because within the publishing firm, what I was sort of going for was more being like an editor and more being about, you know, designing the cover art for the book and not so much the marketing side of things and leaving that more to the people that are specialized in that. But now I'm really interested in that. And I think, you know, it's the way of the future and we're going to have to market and we're going to have to do all of that. And I also think that books themselves, obviously, can't lie. Like, even when I sit in the uni room in my communications major course, and they asked, literally last week, they asked how many people read, and only 2 people in the whole class would admit that they read. And that was me and one other girl. And the other 20 people in the class said, I haven't picked up a book in since high school.
Wow.
And I was like, you're here in a degree where all of the minors are pretty much about writing and about reading. Like, the best way to become good at writing and reading is just reading. if you read books, you learn more words, you enhance your vocabulary, everything. You become a better communicator. And none of the people in there were reading. And I was just like really mortified. And obviously that kind of scares me as an aspiring publisher and someone in that industry, because I'm just thinking, is this actually just disappearing? And do people even care about books anymore? But at the same time, I think what we're seeing is the birth of like audiobooks and podcast as we're here today, and just sort of that new, the adoption of technology to change it. And so it'll just become a different industry, even with AI. Obviously, ChatGPT, and for editors, that's a bit like, what's the point of me when you can skim through the whole book and grammatically fix everything? But the role of the editor goes beyond like, is there a full stop there and is there a comma there? It's like, is this a succinct and beautiful chapter that actually achieves what the author is going for? And I don't think that at this stage AI can answer that.
Well, I think that very formulaic journalism that you were talking about earlier, AI can replicate that quite well.
Yes. Yeah.
However, there is a certain art to reporting news too, but especially to that creative side, that AI, I don't know if it'll ever 100% have that human touch. You know, if you read poetry from the 19th century, the 20th century, AI is not going to be able to replicate the emotions that surround those words. I don't feel like it can. Maybe it can. Maybe we can teach it and simulate it and run it through enough like human simulation to get it to understand the human experience the way that we do. But I don't think you're ever going to be able to get that true human touch when it comes to language and creative works, the same way that you could maybe, you know, legacy mainstream journalism.
Oh yeah, and I mean that like definitely our tutors are always noticing that, and with AI in the actual subject. And obviously I don't do any exams. I only do assessment. So all I do is write stuff.
Chilling.
It's actually really nice.
That is a chill degree.
I prefer it so much more. Occasionally there's some quizzes, but very low, counting like 3% towards the grade.
That's the ChatGPT dream though.
Yeah.
Like, come on, so many, like, you know, as you mentioned, 2 kids in the class read books. The other, you know, however many are just on ChatGPT pumping out the assignments, getting 75%, right?
Well, I have no idea. Like, I think that a lot of people in the degree don't use it. A lot of people in the degree, and I get it because they feel threatened, are quite anti-AI. I myself am not so much, even though the whole industry is really reliant on that not progressing kind of too far. But what I feel like is, I think you can just, at this stage, you can just tell. And our tutors have said, like, no matter what, no matter how much you give ChatGPT a nuanced idea and like tell it what you want it to say, it will just not produce the level of writing that a writing student will produce. Like, and I've seen it firsthand. Like, it can try so hard to create a beautiful poem. You can ask it to create a poem in the style of someone that wrote poetry before, and it can do it, but it is just missing that one thing. Sort of like if I was a high school teacher marking it, what would take a student from a B to an A? It's missing that, and it's just stuck. It's stuck in that B range, and it just can't get to that A range. So at this stage, I feel like they're very good at telling if we've used it. My AI always says, like, this is a complex tapestry. That's the favorite little like word phrase it always uses, and I always know with my students at school, in looking at this in a different way. When I get my students work at school, I can just be like, oh, nice AI essay, because it will say, like,
it'll be
capitalism
really obvious.
is a complex tapestry, and I'm like, nice AI. I don't know. It's just it's really obvious, even if it tries to hide itself. And maybe that'll change, but it's not changing at this stage. I feel.
It's one of those ones where I think back to my experience in high school where AI didn't exist at the time. Well, sorry, generative AI using large language models didn't exist at the time. You weren't able to go on ChatGPT and just print out an entire assignment or exam or not exam, sorry, but essay in, 2 minutes, right? You had to collate it through lessons and then get little bits of other people's as well and try and put together a memorized piece that you're going in there with. And I think that's but that's kind of like, it just replaces that same skill, because it was never, school's all about that critical thinking skill, I feel like, right? Developing that. And that's what it should be about, your ability to problem solve, whether it comes to mathematics, English, etc., right? And to explore, the more creative side of it too. But you want to be able to, you want to be unrestricted in that, in my opinion. But what was your experience like when it came to school and literature? Do you think they did a good job in terms of like, the books that they were reading and the way that we were teaching you, or do you think there was more to be desired?
I think, I was only like a couple years after you. So, because I'm 20, obviously. So,
Okay.
a very sort of similar experience in the sense that large language models weren't so much a thing. Like, I was using Grammarly to like edit my work and stuff like that. But I never even knew about ChatGPT. The way that the whole school system as itself is its own subject that I feel is just so fucking outdated and so poorly done and not physical and practical enough for the modern world.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, well, I just feel like we're not adapting to technology for a start. I feel like coding classes should be a thing.
Oh, come on. But now with AI, you can code, no worries. We can pull up ChatGPT 5. It's the best coder that we need.
And it codes for you.
No, honestly, like GPT-5, they released the trailer for this the other day. It is absolutely insane.
Wow.
The coding capability of AI now. I don't know if we can pull this up, Riley, maybe.
I haven't seen this because like I'm only logging into Harry's very occasionally and just using it and exploiting that.
It's insane. Like if you're a genuine small business owner or something, you want to create a website.
It can create a website.
One prompt can give you all the code that you need. And
wow.
It's so easy to implement. It's and that's the thing. Right now, it doesn't have that human touch, but soon it may.
Yeah.
Soon it might become its own thing. It might become sentient, and then it's not necessarily got a human touch. It's its own thing that we've never had before. We essentially create a new species. Yeah. So ChatGPT can be used to write code. I know that, Riley, bro.
That's
Pull up
insane. Has this been released yet, though?
Yeah. ChatGPT's 5 came out maybe like 20 days ago.
That's insane.
Yeah, 3 weeks ago.
My poor graphic designer auntie is going to be like losing her marbles.
That's the thing. And Google's VO3 came out a little while ago too, and that's groundbreaking, like video AI generated technology. So, everything is replaceable with AI to some extent, because you even think about, like, I think about, working in the corporate world, and people talk about AI is going to take over the corporate world, and there's going to be all these redundancies, and there's a bit of fear mongering around that, but maybe some truth to it as well.
Yeah.
Right. But then, so, in protest to that, maybe start a podcast, do something that's real and like, authentic.
Exactly.
Right. But even this, you could run it through, you could run 20 of our episodes through an AI model. It would understand my behavior, my language, be able to literally simulate me, pull up this, like, we have shitty graphics anyway. It's not like we're running crazy setup here. The AI could generate this easily. Probably be better than the actual podcast, the AI generated version of this show. But here we are doing the real thing. So no, but ChatGPT 5 is out now, and it is insane, and it's only getting better. And it's a very, very, very scary AI world that we're living in right now.
God. Well, in that case, then, taking away the fact now that my coding argument's ruined, I think maybe...
I didn't mean to do
that. No,
that.
it's so fine. But teaching the kids as well, and I thought this is important too, about how to use ChatGPT and AI as the tool, rather than, I was saying the other day to my friend, like, it's not the nail that you nail into the wall, but it's the hammer to help you get the nail into the wall, right? And so if we can use it so that they don't abuse it, but they can have it as an advantageous point, I would really appreciate that. Like, I would, because I know they're going to use it. I'm already seeing it. I'm already marking it. I'm already experiencing that. My main biggest concern with it is just that, obviously, and this is not just due to large language models, but with texting and autocorrect, the children's grammar is just absolute arse shit. Like, we've got year 12 students. I mean, I won't disclose the school I work at because I don't want to diss it, but it's a public school, and it's just like a co-ed public school. And we have students who are using no full stops at the end of their sentences when they're 17, not starting with a capital letter. And like all of this, obviously that's not very big in the scheme of things, but they can't write their university letter. They can't write an email properly with the correct punctuation. They don't look professional. So if that is something that they're aspiring to do, and some of them do end up going to uni, and I just think, how are you even going to cope if I'm still sitting here and putting a full stop at the end of your sentence? And that is not their fault. I believe that's the system and the world that they're growing up in not pushing that enough.
I think with the education system, we've known the problems for a long time.
Yeah.
But developing the solution is so complex, and the environment when it comes to a technological perspective is just exponentially increasing and getting more powerful all the time, right?
Yeah.
It's the landscape is shifting every single year. So it's hard to get policies in place and make them effective. What do you think we need to do to fix the system? What do we need to do to get behind the kids?
Sometimes as well, like obviously we're going in it from a very like technological advancing perspective, but even just to break it back and bring it down, I nearly got sent to, in primary school, I nearly went to a Steiner school. And sometimes I think we need to take some of the ideals that Steiner schools sort of put forward.
What's a Steiner school?
So Steiner schools are sort of like it's like an alternative primary school
Okay.
where kids
Like Hogwarts or something?
no, not like Hogwarts. No Harry Potter stuff. The kids basically don't really learn to read or do maths and stuff until sort of year 2 level, year 3 level.
Okay. All right.
Instead, it's all about you're learning to cook, you're learning to make things, you're learning woodwork, you're learning well-being skills and people skills and like community vibes. That's really emphasized. The creativity is emphasized rather than actual learning.
Yeah.
And so it was something that my parents were considering until obviously when I was like 5 and I started picking up sort of 100-page books. My parents were like, oh, she doesn't really, like, we're kind of letting her down by taking her away from the academics.
Yes.
And I think for some kids it can really suit them, and it's a mistake that parents made. But obviously the biggest concern with it is like, is the kid socially adjusted when they arrive at high school? Because they're these years behind in maths and these years behind in reading and writing, but a lot of the kids often are a lot more creative, better problem solvers, a lot more empathetic, have a lot more hands-on technical skills. And so there is Steiner schools. I believe that there's one in like Terry Hills area.
Okay.
That's probably the one I was going to go to. They're all over the shop.
Wow. And it's just an alternative form of primary education. And I think that's a good idea because we always admit that everyone's their own individual, right? Everyone's super unique and has their own way of learning. However, we have this one size fits all school system,
Yeah.
right? And this offers an alternative to that.
Exactly.
I think, which is important. Do you think there needs to be more alternatives? Do you think the whole system needs to change? Because that's the thing. You could keep getting these different branches
Yeah.
of like, different ways to teach, or the whole system, the curriculum could just be completely flipped on its head. Do you think there's going to be structural change like that, or is it a competitor moved environment?
Well, the changes that they've been trying to make to the curriculum, like, so I teach drama.
Okay.
As one of the subjects that I help with. And they were trying to change the curriculum for drama and dance and things to make less dancing and drama and more theory. And I was like, that just feels so backwards, because anyone who's doing this to come into the actual sphere of being an actress, being an actor or being a dancer is not going to be writing an essay. They're going to be performing. They're going to be doing a musical, or they're going to be doing a tap dance. And so from what they're showing us so far of what their new curriculum reform ideas are, to me seems very wrong direction. I agree with you in the sense that there's just no way we can keep up with the times. There's no way that they can like keep evolving it every year to do with the technological changes and to do with the new things we're discovering. Like, I'm sure parts of the biology textbook are wrong because we've discovered new things now. But I think that it's honestly the impossible question, because it's only made for one type of kid. And it can only ever really be made for sort of one or two types of children and one or two types of learners. We talk about visual learners, auditory learners, people that just like literally actively recall. Obviously, Harry said like he thinks you have like a photographic memory. Just thinks you remember every single thing people say to you. And I feel like I talk about it, but I'm coming from a spot of a lot of privilege because the school system really suited me the way it was, and I achieved really well and it really rewarded me. And now I'm back in it and I'm complaining about it, but I'm someone who had such a good experience with it, and I would need to hear it from someone who struggled and what made them struggle, because I didn't. And so I can't pinpoint those really, really big weaknesses because I just had such an easy time there. And the way that we were taught, just that like, this is the information, remember it, do it again, and like add some flair. it really, really suited me.
No, the school system really suited me as well. I was able to excel. It, because the school system, it's a system that is broken in theory, I think.
Yeah.
But in practice, hard work does get you genuine results.
Completely.
However, you have to be motivated in the right way, have the right people around you, the right people supporting you, and all that formula can lead to good results. And I was lucky enough to have the pieces of the puzzle to put that together. But looking back on my high school experience, there was so much that school didn't teach me that it could have, right? It could have developed me in so many ways outside of being an academic, like memory weapon, right?
Yeah.
Because that's sort of what it is at the end of the day. Like, especially once it gets to the pointy, like
The pointy end, the HSC, yeah.
You're sort of just like a store of knowledge, and you can just pump out essays about, if you're doing economics, you can talk about China's fiscal policy in the last 5 years, and you're just locked into a whole bunch of little subjects, and you just memorize, get cracked at understanding all those, and go from there. But I think that's why we must adapt the school system, or whatever the education fix looks like. It has to involve using AI and not. And not just like pretending it doesn't exist, but not relying on it either, right? There's that balance that needs to be found, right?
Yeah. And it's going to be one of those things where like no one's going to agree. Like what we might say, oh, that's perfect. That's a lovely balance. Someone else is going to be like, that's total shit. Why are we letting the kids use AI? They should be running with a pen and paper in their hand, like boomer style. There's a chance people are going to think that. I mean, it'll be an interesting day when the HSE goes like typed. I feel like that will happen.
Inevitable.
I don't really see how it's not going to.
Inevitable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The year 7s are bringing their laptops to school. So, interestingly, my school did a phone ban this year, which is sort of played out in a funny way.
So you can't bring your phone to school at all,
They
or
have
you
the
just can't have it
pouches.
out? What do you mean, pouches?
We're so very lucky this didn't happen to us when we were at school. 'Cause
Okay.
I love
This is
my little
this is a bit scary.
basically, they get a little leather pouch and they chuck their phone in it and it locks for the day.
Is it like part of your locker or something, or like is there a wall?
I
of
don't know
pouches
if they give
somewhere?
it in. They seem to have it with them, but they can't open it.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, I don't know how it like has some sort of automatic lock on it. I'm very confused. But they've gotten their ways around it. Obviously, they're chucking Nokias in it and they're chucking random stuff and keeping them in their pockets. And I'm not saying anything because when I was there, I had one.
Yeah.
So
What are you gonna do?
And the year 12s, like they can drive a car, but they can't have their phone in class. Like if they're not trying by then, they're not trying ever.
Yeah, you're so right.
Yeah.
Like, are we really? What level of restriction is gonna like eke out more results? You know what
No.
I mean? Like, it's not gonna happen.
No.
The kids who are already in year 12, the kids who are going to achieve have already been working for 9 months to make it happen, and the kids who
Exactly.
have been on their phones are going to stay on their phones.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things, right? And I don't think banning it or making it like or just making it harder for kids to be on their phones doing these crazy leather pouches.
And I
or
love it. I
whatever.
love seeing what they come up with. Like, I'm honestly on their side sometimes when they're doing their cheeky things.
But this is the thing, right? Why aren't there greater conversations being had about the education system at a political level? I feel like with so much change
so
being
true.
like, honestly, I don't know if this is true or not, but there should be education ministers sitting in a room every day for hours and hours having meetings on meetings with all these professionals and all these experts trying to fix the system and make it better. I don't know if those meetings are happening or not, but it doesn't sound like they are, and it doesn't feel like they are.
I have no idea, and I've never heard anyone talk about bringing it up at a political level. I obviously assume that, we have a chief of police, and we have a minister of crime and everything. So I would assume we have a minister of education.
We do.
But
I don't even know who it is. Riley, can you look up
I
who
don't
the
know who it
Minister of
is.
Education is in Australia? Type into ChatGPT, Minister of Education Australia, and what he's done in the last 12 months.
But also,
I'm not trying to shit
we're
on
not trying
people.
to shit him on him.
But like, it just feels like the national conversation has never been on this, and no matter how crazy it gets, it never feels like it will be on
And
this.
it's never really been on like the news or anything either. I never hear anybody really talking about
It's
it.
a problem that's ignored, and
Yeah.
instead of helping it at the root cause, we bring in things like these crazy drugs like Ritalin and Dexies and things, and give them to kids
Yeah.
who can't sit in the classroom and sit still, when in the end they should probably be in an alternative school that has a different form of learning. Right? Because
Completely.
they can't learn times tables. You're asking them what 9 times 9 is. They want to go outside and play.
Yeah.
They're just freaking out. And then you put them on drugs for no reason. Anyway, have a look. Okay, can you make that big for me, Riley? My eyes are no good.
You need Riley's glasses.
Pull that up. All right. So Jason Clare, I have heard of this dude.
I have to.
Okay. So, what has he achieved so far? Suburban University Study Hubs. Open new suburban university study hubs in Broadmeadows and Macquarie Fields, making university resources more accessible to regional students.
Cool.
That's good.
Good.
That's not bad.
Can't complain.
Student debt relief introduced legislation that cut HECS and student loans by 20%, affecting 3 million Australians. Did that actually... Hold on. So when's that?
That's
Bill
the-
passed in late July 2025, but that hasn't actually happened yet. Is that true?
Well, yeah, I know my fees seem to be
Still
the same
high.
as soon
Yeah,
as
yeah,
high as I
yeah,
thought they
yeah,
were
yeah. My
last
fees are still
semester.
the same.
Yeah.
Because I remember they did do the refund of the crazy inflation that we copped that one year.
Yeah.
Because there was 7% inflation one year, and they hit everyone's HEX bill with it, and people just immediately owed like $4,000 more to the government, right?
Wow.
Which overnight, right? But then they changed it, so now it's either the inflation rate or it's the rate that wages increased or the inflation rate, whichever one's lower. So they ended up going back and using the wage increase,
Yeah.
and that ended up being like 3 or 4%. So they refunded everyone that 3% that they missed out on,
Yeah,
to make
okay.
up the 7. But I don't know if they did 20% cutting.
I really hope so.
I personally haven't seen it.
I mean,
Send me the money.
please. My degree is as expensive as a law degree at UTS. Just because it's arts, so they don't it's creative, so they don't want to.
Scroll back up, Riley, just quickly. Yeah, sorry. No, scroll down. So what else has he done? Tertiary education reform. So this is exactly what we're talking about.
I just feel like it's all so focused on university.
Oh, well, the university system is
It
potentially
brings
the
them
most
so
broken.
much money as well.
Oh, so true, right? Because
so much.
this is the thing, right? They're never going to talk about fixing the public primary schools
Yeah.
because to go there costs you $75 a term if you're a parent.
Yeah.
But to go do a degree, just like you mentioned, costs tens of thousands of dollars,
I'm
right?
$13K a year.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
is not cheap.
No.
How many years are
3.
you going to be there? Okay, 3.
I'm doing the
It's not
Masters
bad.
of Education at the end, so I can be a
Wow.
teacher if I like,
Okay.
if I feel like it.
How are you finding that whole experience?
Teaching?
Yes.
It's so many people in my job, my specific job. So I'm not a teacher and I'm not like a support teacher either.
Mhm.
The school has its own program where they rehire like the top kid from the year before, and not always the top kid, but one of the top kids. And the kid comes back and tutors every subject that they did for the HSC. And so the year 11 and 12s book in their free periods. So it's a really, really nice system. And what it does is it isolates all the kids that care. So they're putting into their education, and they choose to come to the session. So I'm never dealing with kids that don't want to be there.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of also given me a rosy outlook of teaching. I'm thinking, wow, this looks like such an amazing career. How rewarding. I bring this kid up a whole band, but the kid wants to be there. So that's something I am thinking about when I think about wait until I get put on year 9 boys. Am I going to feel the same way? Absolutely not. I'm not going to feel the same fucking way at all.
Not the year 9
And
boys.
I'm probably going to be an English teacher, so I'll be hated as hell.
How many teachers I seen lose their mind over year 9 boys?
I know.
Like genuinely go proper insane.
I'm already losing my mind over them. They come into the library and they just like go absolutely crazy. Their biggest thing at the moment is I don't know, they're still yelling the old Minecraft memes. Like from the Minecraft movie.
Oh, from the Minecraft
They're still
movie.
bringing them on.
That's how they get.
Like it'll just be complete silence across the whole library, and then they'll just be. He's already laughing. They'll just be a chicken jockey, and then everyone's just like turning around, and it's just absolutely so awkward, and it's so outdated, and it's not funny anymore. But I appreciate them. They add some spice to the lunchtime.
No.
It would be boring without them, quite frankly, as well. But yeah, anyway, back to with the teaching. So many people who are hired as what I am, all started in other degrees and then revert to teaching.
Okay.
So it's a bit of a trend going on. And when I came in the other day and said to my boss, like, I want to do a master's in English and drama teaching at the end of the degree, she was like, oh, of course you are. Like, we've had people that were full on going to be engineers, aeronautical engineers, doctors, like big careers, who then just fully went 1 year into this teaching job and went, nah, I'm going to be a maths teacher. Which I guess in the eyes of a lot of their parents and people would have been a downgrade. But the fulfillment that you do feel when you actually impart knowledge on a child and you watch them develop psychologically. And because I sometimes believe like English can actually teach kids a lot of moral lessons.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the aim of all the books are. I know they're all sitting there and they're like, I hate this Shakespeare. This is so stupid. But what we're actually trying to teach you is something so much greater than the quotes. But only a handful of people are going to appreciate that.
Yeah, only a handful of kids at that age, in my opinion, are capable of understanding
completely.
it. Because some of the Shakespeare stuff when I was younger, I understood it, but now reading it, I have more lived experience to be able to relate it to. When you're 17, 18 years old, all you've lived is school, right? You don't understand anything. Like you read Macbeth, but you don't understand human emotion because you haven't lived enough human life, right? But then when you read it when you're a bit older, and I imagine if I'm older again, I'll get more out of it because I understand the human emotional spectrum more. But when you're so young, you don't understand those things.
And you can't blame them.
And then like it's in 1500s English, so you're battling. You're battling, right?
Yeah, no,
like,
I'm battling.
Yeah, like no, you just it's inevitable that you are. So they make it. That's the thing. English has amazing lessons to teach you in school, but it's only able to be unlocked if you have either the natural intellect or insane work ethic to be able to get it done.
So I completely agree with this. I think so much of it in every subject and in every sort of passion, there's natural skill. With sports players, you know, there's the natural skill. With the English kids, there's the natural skill, and there's only so much you can teach. Like in our lecture the other day, the teacher was asking if can you teach kids tone, like to have original tone, because a lot of authors you read one sentence and you're like, oh my god, that's Sally Rooney, oh my god, that's Shakespeare. Like you can tell in the first sentence who is writing it. But people were saying, oh yeah, you can teach tone, but I'm just thinking, I just don't think you can. I think, you know, some people are born to run 100 meters really fast, like Usain Bolt, and I don't think you can teach that.
I completely agree.
No.
When it comes to art, there's like a certain when you do something for so long, you develop your own personal style and flair.
Yes.
Like I remember my mate, his name's Nick, and he's been playing the guitar for 3 or 4 years now, but he's gotten really good over a short period of time. And I remember what it was like when he first started playing. It was like a lot of songs, like not repetitive sort of stuff, but he was still, you know, finding his rhythm. But there was a certain like, you know, 6 months where he just hustled and was on the guitar every single day, and he developed this very slick style of being able to play. And now a lot of the stuff he plays is in this very niche sort of, you know, style of guitar, and he's made it his own, right? And like I think that exact sort of process can be related to so many things. The only way to develop your tone as a writer is to write, and to write an insane amount, and to, you know, understand who you are and to be able to express that and reflect that on the page. And that comes with practice and lessons within yourself. You know, it's exactly like Bruce Lee said, a teacher can't show you the truth. They can't show you the light. They're not the ones that are gonna, they aren't the light themselves. They're a catalyst who can guide you to the truth within yourself. Only the lessons that somebody else can teach you and that you can learn from first person.
Who said this?
Bruce Lee.
He's taken this from like original Buddhist texts.
Yeah,
This is an original, like a Buddhist Taoist teaching, is that a lot of people get caught in their teacher and their spiritual guide. And so then when that spiritual guide leaves you and you're like, oh my God, I have no hope to extend myself any further spiritually, then they feel lost. But it's the light within that has to be sparked first. And that's something that the teacher can only spark. They can't grow, but they can spark it for you.
They can spark it, but they can't keep the flame on all the time. That's up to the individual, right? And that unique creative force has to come from them, you know. And it can't be, you can't teach that brushstroke on the canvas when it comes to a famous artist, right? Same with pen on paper, same with any art. I think a lot of like same sort of thing. This podcast, having conversations, I think there's an art to it too.
Oh, completely.
And there's like an expressive sort of, you know, battle that's going on with your own mind and then what you project out into the world. You know, it's a lot of fun.
And it's great practice for communication. It really, really is. And you, like, when we're talking about natural flair, you obviously have something to make you an interviewer. Like, you'd be a fantastic journalist because you're getting things out of people. And I've watched some of the other episodes, and like, obviously people wouldn't even know, but it's the first time I've met Ethan. And so like, but I feel so comfortable, right? And that's actually a skill that only some people also possess. I think people are very awkward, and some people would be absolutely dog shit at this. And to just be able to sit down and to be able to feel like you can kind of just say anything, and I'm not feeling worried about it, and I don't feel like it's going to dry up because you are actually focused and you're locked in and you're so present. And yeah, I think bringing presence into the activity it's really
I really appreciate that,
really
Holly.
enhancing skills.
Dude, it's such a skill doing this, I
Yeah.
feel, because you have to be present in the moment, but then you have to be entertaining and talk about things that make sense, but then you don't want to, get too crazy with going down certain rabbit holes. You want to keep it on the guest, and then you want to like balance the amount that you talk. There's so many things to think about, but the main thing is just being myself and being authentic, because that allows everything else to happen. And that's why, like, when I get super nervous and I try and like, be professional and have notes, that's when it can kind of like feel structured.
Yeah.
I feel like just letting it flow and you coming in and feeling comfortable. That's the thing. And that soft skill will never go away.
No.
That human touch, it's like, because on paper, if you're reading something, maybe one day the AI will be so good that you can't tell, right? But I can tell if I'm talking to somebody and they're paying attention, they're listening to me and they're locked in and this is a good conversation.
Yeah.
And that, I think, transfers on the screen too. That's a real tangible thing that exists.
I was going to say the whole conversation is actually just linking, like when we're talking about creative flair and that natural ability, that's just linking back to our AI conversation about what is always going to be lacking, right? Because like it just cannot emanate this. It cannot emanate human passion. It can't emanate the human spirit. And that's kind of beautiful. That's kind of poetic in its own way.
It is insane.
Yeah.
But it's also insane that, like, yes, it's not human. We've literally created something brand new.
Yeah.
Like, the human species has born into existence the machine mind. And, like,
So incredible.
that is a step that people... Like, the human population didn't get a choice. You know what I mean?
I
Like,
agree.
these tech people just made this thing and put it out, and it's changed lives in ways that humans can't even understand. And the timeline that we were on before the AI and now after the AI is so different. And this wasn't a choice. Maybe it was a choice made by people who are so powerful that we don't even know their names, and it was really thought out. But maybe this was just a couple of guys who are really smart tech bros that sorted this out, that were able to simulate human language on the screen and feed it the entire internet.
Well, it's even like where, when we talk about species and humans being, this complicated species, it's like he needs a coconut water.
I do. No, just pass the bottles of water with the cups. I meant to get you a cup of water, Holly.
About it. Oh, Harry loves coconut water. It's one of his like little niche things that when he's feeling down, I get him a little coconut water. He said it's more hydrating. I don't know about that. Is this factual?
It is factual.
It is more hydrating.
It is more hydrating.
Where's this originating? Is this a gym bro community thing or what's the deal?
Nah, so I guess to understand how coconut water is more hydrating. To understand how coconut water is more hydrating, we have to understand hydration, right? So most people think, sorry, why?
It sounds AI generated.
I sound AI generated. No, I just stumbled on my.
To understand this, we have to understand hydration.
Sorry, maybe I'm the CEO of ChatGPT. Fuck.
I love it.
Too much.
No, it's perfect. Keep
Okay,
going.
sorry, I'm trying to break it down in good. So people can understand it at home. Because I always feel like I'm just talking, I'm just rambling on this podcast. I'm not actually delivering any value. So when I'm actually going to talk about something I'm knowledgeable about, I'm trying to actually like spit the facts,
Yeah.
Anyway.
Spit the facts.
Hydration is not just water. Most people think you drink enough water, you get 3-4 liters a day, you're good.
That.
However, it's a lot to do with the amount of electrolytes that you're getting too.
Okay.
So that includes 4 main electrolytes: salt, sodium, chloride, potassium, and magnesium, right? Potassium is super present in coconut water, and coconut water is one of the best ways to get a lot of potassium too, right? And so, yeah, here it is. Riley's pulled it up. Riley's pulled it up on ChatGPT now. But yeah, and then it also has a lot of sodium. It also has a little bit of magnesium, and it has chloride as well. And then so if you have a few of these, not a few of these, but if you have like one of these every 2-3 days, and you have a little bit of salt in your diet, and you drink plenty of water, you will be really well hydrated. Yeah, and magnesium is quite hard to get. A lot of people find supplementing with magnesium just before you go to bed, get a magnesium glycinate.
Yes, better than the normal one.
Exactly. We all know. We're all on that TikTok real health grind. It's, that's the thing. Nutritional health information has become so accessible through social media and through podcasts and these even these health and fitness celebrities like Huberman and stuff like that. It's become so commoditized, but it's also become hard to know what's real and what's fake.
What's real and what's not fake. Yeah, my mum's a naturopath, so I've grown up. Do you know what a naturopath is?
I do.
Yeah.
Explain it for the audience though, just in case.
So basically, it's sort of like homeopathic medicine. So it's got links in like Chinese medicine, herbalist medicine, and then also Western medicine ideals. She's not practicing anymore, but healing people through natural means rather than chucking chemicals down their throat. And she was sort of also a bit like, we try all the natural things first, and if they don't work, we'll be happy to, for example, stick a kid on Ritalin, like you said, And so growing up, she was always very, very health focused, and I always knew about all those little things like mag glycinate, and you're talking about all of that. Everything's always been very whole foody. It's been very health focused. No Maccas till I was 7.
Wow.
All of that sort of stuff. But that does make you go ham when you're like 13 and you finally get a credit card and you have a frozen Coke like every afternoon because you weren't allowed to touch it for like 13 years. Yeah.
That's the thing. When you restrict a kid, it just makes them want to do it more.
Yeah.
Like the ambition to rebel is, it's central to all childhood experiences.
Yeah, exactly.
Really. You want to do it so bad. And, and like that's the thing. I even had friends who were like, grew up as vegetarians or vegans or whatever until they were like 16, 17. And then as soon as they moved out or moved to Canberra for uni, they just went crazy, right?
I went vegetarian for 8 months when I was in about, year 10.
Okay.
And, at the time it was sort of like I was kind of giving it under the guise of like an environmental thing or anything. I think really it was just like diet culture and being a young woman and wanting to stay really skinny so I could like control my food. So sort of that disordered eating mindset.
Okay.
But rediscovering meat is one of the most beautiful things you ever do when you're a vegetarian. And I'm sorry to all the vegetarians out there, but like, God, I feel we are so meant to eat meat, in my personal opinion. But I did enjoy my vegetarian time, learned some great recipes and things. But I think it suits a certain kind of person. I didn't feel like I was getting what I needed. I felt very tired. I got sick often. And, maybe I should have been taking iron supplements and I probably should have been taking things that I wasn't taking. But if I need to take all those things, to me, it just seems like my body can't produce what it needs to be without meat.
100%.
Yeah.
Like meat, you talk about iron. There's a million things that we could talk about, but if you don't have enough iron, you're not going to get enough oxygen in your red blood cells. Therefore, you're not going to have enough energy.
Yeah.
Right. And that's going to affect everything you do, right? From mental energy to physical energy to the clarity that you have to the sleep that you're going to get. If you've got low iron, and this is the thing, you can have sustainable iron levels on a vegan or vegetarian diet
Completely.
if you do the right things, but it just adds another layer of complexity to your life, right? Because when it comes to non-heme iron, which is the iron found in spinach and other plants and things like that, it's very hard to ingest. But there are certain methods that you can do, like adding citrus to your meal before like with spinach or something.
Yeah, okay, cool.
The thing is, if you create a more acidic environment in the stomach, it becomes easier for that non-heme iron to be transitioned into ferrous iron that can be absorbed into your bloodstream.
Wow,
but your stomach has to become more acidic, which is why citrus and those sort of foods, even like garlic and things like that, can actually help unlock a lot of the iron that's in spinach and things like that. But if you just have cooked spinach with some eggs and tomatoes, you probably only absorb like 8% of that iron.
Yeah, and I mean, like, a 15-year-old, 16-year-old girl, I'm not looking into it that deeply. I'm just going,
you don't know that.
Oh, I don't want to kill the cow.
Yeah.
It actually all happened because I went on this like family trip to Mudgee and we stayed at this farm stay and I befriended this beautiful cow called Brenda, or at least I called her Brenda at the time. And I like hung out with Brenda in the paddock for like 4 days. And then the Airbnb host came and he was like, "Did you guys enjoy your stay?" And I was like, "Yeah, the highlight was definitely Brenda." And he was like, "Oh, Brenda's getting slaughtered next week." And I was like, "Oh." And then we went to a pie shop like 10 minutes later and I said to Mum, like, "I'm never eating meat again." And she thought I was taking the piss.
Wow.
But it did last for 8 months. I was so traumatized by Brenda the cow. Rest in peace, Brenda.
Well, that's a good life for Brenda because, like,
Yeah, I know. It literally is.
factory farming now and the way that cattle is raised, like, people think, like when you go to Coles and you get some steaks that, they're out on the pasture. Like when you see, like, because a lot of Australians, right, they drive to the snow, they drive up and down the coast, they see these farms with these cattle grazing around.
Yeah.
But that's not where our meat comes from.
No.
They come from these giant warehouses with thousands of cows who have this tiny little amount of land that are fed these pellets and pumped full of these antibiotics. Probably
the
all these
antibiotics is
probably all these hormones to sterilize them and all this terrible stuff to beef them up, make them huge, and then slaughter them all at a time and do these mass, like,
Yeah.
but that's that's what we need to sustain a huge
yeah.
population. But I feel like that's another thing that doesn't get enough light as well,
Yeah.
because it's one of those things where it's like, okay, yes, we understand that we're going to need to do this to survive. Sort of like the coal argument as well.
Yes.
We can't completely remove coal. There needs to be a transition period, and we need to do this a smart way. And coal has a big part in Australia's future too, because there is going to be a transition.
Yes.
And we're going to need, because of AI, we're going to need as much energy as we can get, right? And we shouldn't be, we should be phasing these things in and out.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. We need factory farming to sustain the population, but now that population's sustained, and in Australia the population could potentially decline,
Yeah.
right, because we're not replacing ourselves, fertility rates are all-time low.
Low,
But regardless, right, we need to there's so much going on here. But
Literally can't keep up. He says something and then I'm like, I could talk about the fertility rate. I could talk about I literally cannot. But no, and you're right about the farming. Like, it is impossible. We have so many people here. I mean, there are places where you can obviously source the antibiotic-free meat, the grass-fed meat. My dad was carnivore for 9 months. Recently he did that, and then he did keto. He's done all of it, really. And we obviously, at that time, he only wanted to eat grass-fed meat from the markets pretty much. So that was an expensive little endeavor of his. But he felt amazing, which I always thought the idea of just eating meat was just like absolutely insane. And that, I think we're very brought up that vegetables are a really important part of the diet. And at the end of the day, I do believe that we should have a healthy mix of everything. But he did, do the 9 months of carnivore.
wow.
And he said he's never felt so strong. He wasn't working out. My dad's actually got a chronic illness.
Okay.
And so he's been trying, he only developed it a couple of years ago. So he's been trying all these different things to see how they make him feel. And he said, he got really lean, but very muscly without really working out,
Wow.
which was really interesting. So that's sort of caveman style life. And you start looking like a caveman. And even his like beard was growing more strong.
Wow.
Like he was really looking quite caveman.
What made him stop?
I don't really know. I think it was just not sustainable in the long run. His cholesterol levels did get a bit crazy.
Yeah.
Because obviously he was just having like pretty much just like sausages, steak. It would be pretty funny. Like someone would come over for breakfast and I'd be like, oh, do you want some eggs on toast? And then they'd come to the table and dad would just have like a massive lamb chop for breakfast. And he'd be like, oh, good morning, eating his lamb chop and then doing his yoga. He's very, very health oriented, because sort of before, but also because of like what happened to him. So now he's even more obsessed.
Yes, I understand. I completely understand.
Yeah. Have you tried it?
No, I haven't tried going full carnivore. I sort of want to like strip back and eliminate everything and then work things back in slowly.
See how it makes you feel.
Exactly. Because I wouldn't just go like, okay, 9 months I'm only eating meat. I would maybe go, okay, a month I'm only going to eat meat. And then first week, that 5th week, we're going to add in eggs. 6th week, we're going to add in, maybe some butter, some dairy, some like easy to digest things. Maybe, week 7, week 8, fruits, vegetables, like, more complex carbohydrates, etc. And then just build up. How does my body respond? How does my energy feel? Did I feel better when I was doing the carnivore?
As
straight
an
carnivore?
experimentation thing.
Exactly.
I did reset my whole microbiome last year. I kind of had to. I had like a bacterial stomach overgrowth. And so the doctor was like, you kind of have to try this.
So what did you do exactly?
Well, I had to do antibiotics first to get rid of the bacterial overgrowth.
Okay.
But then he was really good because he was all about like, well, we've ruined everything. So now I want to be really careful and start from scratch. So I didn't have any sugar for 3 months. And
Wow.
obviously it's not a long time. Like really in the scheme of life, it's not a long time. But
When you say sugar, no sugars at all, fruits?
no fruit for a month.
No fruit? Okay.
No
wow.
fruit for a
That's
month.
real commitment.
Yeah, it was really hard.
Yeah.
No sugars like, lollies, chocolates.
Yep.
The more obvious things that
Obviously,
we
yes.
think of as sugar
Yep.
for 2 months. There was no bread for the first month.
Wow.
There was no alcohol for the 2 months. And the third month, it was just maximum 2 shots of vodka or tequila a week.
Okay.
It was really hard, but I really wanted to adhere to it because it like really fixed a lot of ongoing issues. But yeah, it does weird things to your body, and that initial getting over the craving of sugar is crazy.
Yes.
I don't know if you've ever tried going off sugar for a period of time.
I only have natural sugar.
Yeah.
So I don't have any processed, no lollies, candy, etc. What we were talking
Wow.
about before. But this coconut water has a little bit of sugar in it. It's got
Yeah.
like 4 grams for this can or whatever. But it's not, it doesn't get me going like it doesn't spike my insulin like
Yeah,
refined sugar would.
Dad always
And-
says 4 grams is what he considers like
Yeah.
the maximum. Okay.
But that's the thing. Like I don't focus on any of that. I don't
No.
focus on my sugar content. I don't focus on my macronutrients. I only focus on the quality of my food. If
Yeah.
I'm eating great organic strawberries or great grass-fed meat,
Yeah.
like that is what's super important to me. Having a coconut water that doesn't have any additives and sugars
Yeah.
and doesn't go through a like mass processing plant, any of that stuff is important to me.
Yeah.
And I think that exactly just like the situation that you're talking about before, I only started paying attention to this stuff because my own chronic illness.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's how I got hip to it, and then I just like sharing it on the podcast and
Yeah.
letting other people know about the good news too.
Oh, I feel like unfortunately, like for so many people, it's like getting sick that makes you go shit. Like my health. I mean, that's the only reason that I adhered to the diet so hard because I was like, I just want this to be different. I just want my stomach to actually feel good. I don't want to feel sick all the time. I felt sick all the time. And then from that experience, because I cut out everything, I also went off dairy for the first month. Literally the first month was pretty much just like really plainly seasoned meat, eggs, and vegetables.
Wow.
And that was it. And I also got very lean, but I didn't have the energy to like work out or anything. So I just got very skinny. But obviously it all came back when I got to introduce like rice and everything. And I was feeling a lot more replenished and everything again. But it takes that like the scare of being sick to get you to care, unfortunately. I don't know many people who just woke up and cared without having some sort of family issue or some ongoing condition that they already had. My dad had an adverse reaction to an antibiotic.
Wow.
Yeah, he was prescribed. They thought he had an ear infection. He didn't have an ear infection. He just had like a bony growth growing over his ear, which lots of surfers get,
Okay.
called surfer's ear.
Yes.
And so he went to the doctor, and obviously the GP put a thing in his ear and said, "I can't see shit, man. Like it's so swollen." But that was his assumption. So he gave him this antibiotic called ciprofloxacin, and he went home. And then within a matter of days, like my dad, it was the healthiest person I knew, the fittest, happiest. Strong but not like a buff guy. Didn't really go to the gym, but just very active.
Yeah.
And most of all, extraordinarily happy and at peace. Like almost like he was in a constant state of meditation. Nothing fazed him. My whole childhood, he never yelled at me ever.
Wow.
He's never yelled at me my whole life. Extremely, extremely calm. Extremely zen.
Wow.
Like low key, I thought he was like Buddha. He was so zen. And then he started taking this antibiotic to help him. And within a matter of days, he was just like driving along and he was like, "Oh my God, I want to drive off the bridge." And he was like, "Whoa, when have I ever thought that in my whole life?" And then there was like shaking and nervous feelings and suddenly being very anxious all the time. And then he went to the doctor and he was like, it's this product that you've given me. It's messed me up. And the doctor's like, "No, what are you talking about?" And then he went onto Facebook and looked at different people, and like there's thousands and thousands and thousands of Australians and Americans who have been impacted by this same class of antibiotics, and it's black boxed in America but not here, which is really backwards. Like you think we'd be in front of them in that sense. So he wasn't aware of any of the side effects, but basically because the product's called ciprofloxacin, it's called being floxed.
Wow.
So now he's basically been floxed. And he has he gets shaky. He has insomnia, anxiety, depression, all of these different things that he never had before.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's really scary because it's prescribed every single day. It's the most common antibiotic given to women with a UTI. it's the most common, like it's one of the most common ones. It's just popped out. And the fact that he didn't even need it and it was given to him as well, it's just like another level of just.
Yeah. He wasn't facing a
Annoying.
life-threatening infection or something.
No, he didn't even have an infection. He had a bone growth that he ended up having to have surgically removed because it was physical, not even bacterial. So there was nothing. And so now he
tragic.
lives with this. He has to have an ice bath every morning because it helps get rid of the nervous pinging sensation all over his body. So even today, in like the 5-degree morning, he's getting up there and he's dipping in the ice bath in the backyard for like 7 minutes, and he sits in there and does Wim Hof. Does everything. Every morning he does his chi yoga release, breath work for an hour. During the initial stages to calm himself down, he would meditate for like up to 4 hours.
Damn, this guy's living
Yeah,
a dream
this
life.
he is, except for the fact that he's like fucked.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's not like
he has to do this.
It has to, not a
Yeah.
want to, and it used to be a want to.
Damn.
And so that's like really awful. Yeah, it's heavy and it's horrible.
It is heavy.
And I think people need to know, like, just because you're at the doctor and the doctor gives it to you doesn't mean you shouldn't research the product.
That's the thing. The pharmaceutical industry,
Yeah.
they don't have our best interests at heart. They
No.
have their interests to profit, and that comes at the expense of people. And
Yeah.
pushing a drug that's profitable, that probably went through some pretty suspicious testing. And if it's illegal in the US, then it has to be terrible, because the US has so many drug problems going on now, both prescription and illegal, right? Like that, if it's illegal over there, then it definitely should be illegal here too.
Well, exactly. It's just not as given out over there, and it's just the warnings are really outlined. It's still given out, but the warnings are just really clearly outlined. Whereas over here, it's sort of taken that a way slower time to be seen in such a light.
We're going to look back in like 20 years
Yeah.
and be like, what the hell did we let them do to us? Like the statins
Yeah.
for cholesterol.
Oh, he's big on that. Yeah.
Ozempic for people who want to lose weight quickly. All of this is just going to be scandal after scandal. I don't know if these people will ever go to jail. All the terrible stuff they did in COVID.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I don't know if these people are going to really face, you know, the consequences of their actions.
No, yeah.
But if they do, and if the culture and society shifts, we'll look back on this in 10, 20 years, and hopefully we've got a better system to work with. But it's one of those things where we'll look back and think, what were we doing?
I think so. And my dad also had like a reaction to the COVID vaccine as well, which he was reluctant to take in the first place. I think, you know, naturopathic wife, being a bit of a hippie.
100%.
We had our upbringing the way I was quite keen. Like, I wanted to go to music festivals, and so I was like, "Oh,
What about
just
your
give it
mum,
to me."
though? What'd
My
you
mum
want
was
to-
heartbroken. She cried when I got vaccinated. The COVID vaccine. The other vaccines, she's got no problem with them, but that one, she shed a little tear because she was like, "It's not." It wasn't that she cared. Like, she thought eventually it would be fine, but she felt it was so under researched, and just the push out time was ridiculous. And it was like, when you really think about a product that's given out on a global scale, a 7-month sort of creation time.
And this wasn't a classical vaccine.
No.
This was genetically modified mRNA research, right? That was new. We never had a vaccine like this before. And there wasn't long-term clinical studies. And the studies that they used to pass it on the news and pass it through all the different little legislative holes that they had to find to get it done, right? It was all just a huge cover-up.
Yeah.
Right? And the things that they told us it would do, it didn't even work. It didn't stop transmission.
No, I
it
had
didn't
it
make you
3
any less
times,
sick.
you know?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It really is.
And he had an adverse reaction to that, the first one. He had like the myocarditis where your heart swells up. And so it was fine. He had the first vaccine, he felt sick, he had a sore chest, and he went, "I'm gonna go to hospital." And like, he went there, and obviously, you know, I recognize the immense power and what vaccines bring to the world is incredible. But like, he went into the hospital and he said to the nurse, like, "Oh, this is going on." And she said, "Oh, it's because of your vaccination." And he said, "Oh, how many people are in hospital with COVID at the moment?" And she said, "Oh, we have 2 at Beaches." And then he was like, "Oh, how many people are here with reactions?" And she said, "Oh, I got 12. And I was like, is that really, it's worth it with choice, right? If you choose to put yourself in that situation and get vaccinated, and if you want to, like I wanted to, that was my choice. And if I had a reaction, I can't be angry about that. But it's when you stop people from being able to do things and then tell them, if you want to do things, if you want to have your own business, like my dad has his own business, if you want to go into offices, you need this, then that's not choice anymore. That's influence. And so he's been influenced and now his health's at stake. And so then he sat there and he said to her, well, assuming because of what's happened here, I'm not going to have to get my second one, am I? And she said, oh, we'll just wait a bit longer, but we'll do your second one in a few months. And I was like, there's no way some dude's heart swells up and you tell him he has to have this again and put himself in this exact same risk situation again. And he did. And he went back and he had it so that he could continue to own his business.
That's the thing. They forced us to get it.
Yeah.
Whether you were a student in school, a small business owner, someone that worked in corporate, a teacher.
Yes.
I know teachers that were fired
So
from my high school because they wouldn't get the COVID vaccine. And back then I was like, I thought, what are you doing? Just get it.
Oh,
Just
me too. I was so, and
because
I was
we were uneducated.
Yeah.
The wool had been pulled over our eyes. The whole world didn't know. We were thought this vaccine was the key to our freedom, and we hated the fact that we were locked inside.
Yeah.
We thought we were told that this vaccine's going to work, going to stop transmission, right? Everyone's going to go to Kudos Bank Arena and get jabbed, and then we're all going to be free in 2-3 weeks, right? Turns out there's huge long-term ramifications, and across across the Western world, heart attacks and myocarditis are up because of vaccine injuries, right?
Yeah.
And this is why I think the work that RFK is doing at the White House right now is so important, because I believe that vaccines are an important part of our health infrastructure and ecosystem.
Me too.
They should be. They're important. However, we should fully understand the ramifications that they bring on.
Yeah.
And people don't talk about this. There was a study conducted by the CDC, paid for by the American government in 1999, conducted by a guy named Thomas von Stratton, and he found that the hepatitis C vaccine given to babies increased rates of autism by up to 1,000%. This is exactly what RFK essentially said the other day. And he's quoting research from the 90s that has been suppressed, that the government did, and they just buried it, right? And you think about hepatitis, it's a sexually transmitted disease, and they give it to babies literally within a day or 2 days within them being born. And you go, is this because they make money off this, or is this because the child needs it, right? And when you start asking questions like that, you can start applying it to a lot of things in the pharmaceutical world. And there's a lot of problems. We talked about, in my opinion, the meth pill problem, which is the Dexies, the Ritalins, which are essentially just like tablet forms of meth, right, that you give to children, and for kids because that's the thing, it doesn't make any, I don't necessarily fully understand this because I'm not a psychologist, etc., right? But those tablets, for some kids they can calm them down, and for some kids it keeps them awake for 16 hours, right, bouncing off the walls.
I mean, I've had a Dexie and before a night out, and it just keeps you awake. Like it's just to make you like, woo. Like if I had taken that for an exam, I probably would have been super locked in. And I knew people that were using those things to study who didn't have ADHD. And I have a friend who has severe ADHD, and for her it is the most helpful and amazing thing, and she wouldn't have gotten through her studies without it. But it is so overprescribed. And I think ADHD in women is really misunderstood as well. I think they miss a lot of female cases. But that's like something that I don't really know much about, but I've heard a lot from my friend Lucy, that she says like it was just so hard for her to get diagnosed. And because it's not like men, they're not like little boys jumping off the wall and ripping things off the wall and having this uncontrollable hyperactivity. They often can actually be quite reserved and like quite silent in their inability to focus and sort of spaced out. And so it goes unnoticed because they're just a sweet, nice, quiet student or girl. And so the teachers don't pick up on the issue.
Yes.
But it is just back to that. Like it is being shoved down so many kids' throats. And I think also we have to remember children are children. Like if a boy from age 10 to 14 is bouncing off the walls and ripping things off the walls, I don't think in 1972 anyone would have thought anything of that other than he was just a crazy kid. Like I imagine my dad would have been diagnosed with ADHD as a young boy because he was just totally crazy. Like he used to just pick up snakes in the back garden, decapitated a snake in front of my grandma once because she was going to attack her, and like things like that. It's just like those sort of crazy nutshell behaviors, and he would spit paper at the teacher and stuff, but that's just acting out as a little boy, and as a fully formed adult he's totally fine, right? So it's like, do we need to give people the growing space, but also to see if it actually is a real issue, or also do we have to question if it is legit, why do so many more kids have it now? You know, is it to do with these medications, these vaccinations, things like this? I'm not sure. The whole autism vaccine situation has been one where I've been met at home with such positive, like, yes, that is a real legitimate thing. And then when I bring that out into the real world, I'm very scrutinized for that opinion. And like, obviously a lot of my friends disagree with me and show me research that disagrees with the opinion. And so it's something where I'm kind of like at a neutral point and I don't really know. But I also think that the health issue side of things and like all the neurological issues that we're having, including these mental ones, go beyond the meds and also into things like just the amount of like electromagnetic frequencies in the air, like the amount of radiation that's probably coming off this room right now. My dad just got like a little, I don't know what it is. It's like a little beeping machine and it goes around our house and it detects the frequencies in the house. I don't know if you know what this would be called.
No, I don't.
But yeah, he puts in like our electricity box, and then he realized that my mum and dad had their bed orientated in a way where their heads were really, really close to the electricity box, which was constantly emitting radiation and gamma waves and everything. And so they rotated their bed. And they went over to a friend's house the other day who has breast cancer, and she wanted to put it through her whole house to change the whole house to give the least radiation and the least waves possible during her cancer treatment, because, you know, she's of the belief that maybe that could have a role in making it worse for her. And so I do wonder if, like, you know, the amount of shit in our water, like, that's something RFK is very passionate about.
Yep.
We have at my house the strangest water system. It's like, Harry can vouch for that. It's like a disconnected giant water tank with rocks in it at the bottom. I don't know if it remineralizes your water.
Oh, I understand what you're trying to do. Yes, yeah.
So we collect, oh my gosh, these people, my parents sound crazy. We collect our water from a spring on a farm that my dad's an indoor gardener.
Bro, you guys are deep.
Yes.
You're deep
We're
into
deep.
this naturopath type stuff. Because I've been, you know, because you can get a reverse osmosis water filter.
We have a reverse osmosis water filter.
Yeah, but this is different. This is this is that you have a legit farm that you get your water from.
Yeah, so
that's a different level.
He has the plants on the farm because he's an indoor gardener, and so this is his old boss who he's bought the business from, and he still uses his farm to use the greenhouses there.
Okay.
So he visits there to water the plants, and then when he's there, he collects water from the spring for a start, brings it home in these big water gallon things, pours it into the reverse osmosis tap thing, which also has rocks at the bottom that remineralize the water. So then again, add all the necessary minerals, the magnesium, everything we're talking about, the potassium, and then we drink it.
You don't even need coconut water.
I don't
You'd be
even
getting
need
everything.
coconut water.
You're
And
getting
I
everything you
noticed the
need.
difference.
Oh, you 100% would.
I can now, like, if I drink pure tap water from someone's house, I'm like, ugh, like that is awful. Whereas if it's like if it's been filtered, like with the general water filter, you can't notice it as much. But then this water, that it's just like so smooth, and it's always cold. I don't know what that's to do with, but it's like smooth and very cold.
Bro, I can see Riley smiling over here. He wants some of that water.
He wants
some of that water.
You guys need to invest. I'm honestly surprised you don't have one with everything you're saying.
I try and tell my parents that we need to get a reverse osmosis water filter, but my dad's like, shut up, bro. Like, you can actually shut up.
Well, it's like disconnected from the tap. Like, it's not on the tap.
Yeah, I know. I walked him through it. He's like, be quiet. Like,
Oh, the house, it looks actually like a really rich white person, like, yoga retreat. There's an infrared sauna, the ice bath, the reverse osmosis tap filter, and then the music shed. Like, it's just ridiculous.
That's insane. That's a really good setup.
It's all just for my dad, really. Like,
dream setup.
It's just his setup.
Just get the podcast studio set up in there, and I'd be living.
Yeah.
Because like those spaces to do those activities, like, you know, like cold plunge, saunas, etc. They kind of like, they add that, you know, that third, fourth dimension to your life, kind of like an ability to meditate, relax, connect with a more spiritual side. Are these things like, do you do a lot of that yourself? Like, do you someone that meditates, and does it ever get spiritual for you?
Very. I mostly read philosophy. So I mostly read that sort of stuff.
Okay, sick.
My favorite philosopher, look, I don't know what you've read, but his name's Eckhart Tolle.
Okay.
So he's big on presence. His most famous book is called The Power of Now. It's a really excellent book. I have a little Power of Now tat
Oh, hell yeah.
from the book.
That's so cool.
Yeah, but basically he's all about like the biggest issue of humanity and the biggest illness is that we are just not present. Because when we come into the present moment, which is the only moment that you have actually ever experienced as a human being, the present moment, when we come into that present moment, all issues and all suffering disappears when we are truly, truly, truly present. And so it all sounds like very simple, right? And like it seems like it's very easy to achieve, but actual presence and to sustain presence is very difficult to achieve. It's that, and to be thoughtless. That's a feeling that I constantly crave, to be entirely thoughtless and to just be. And that's why, like, you know, when you hear affirmations and people say, when they're trying to attract something, they say, I am wealthy, right? And that's them creating the belief on the vibrational level that they are already wealthy. Like, I am wealthy, I am happy, I am beautiful. And they try to attract that on a vibrational level. But when we strip that back and take away that last adjective of what you're trying to become, and you have I am, that is basically the essence of his work, is that I am, full stop. Like, I am here right now. Are you getting me?
I'm getting you.
You're getting me.
I'm just
right.
letting you cook.
Yeah. And so, like, you know, it's a hard feeling to explain to people if they've never felt pure presence. And I've only felt it like a handful of times in my life, like to pure thoughtlessness and just emancipating joy. A lot of religious people might think that that's the feeling of God. And I can see how. Like, and even Eckhart in his books often talks about it as God. And like that is something that I can connect to, that feeling of God, but it's of the belief that God is not separate to us. God is within us and outside of us. And it's all like an ever evolving ecosystem of God being energy, not being an entity or something that has rules attached to it.
I understand.
Do you see what
I know.
I mean?
I understand your logic.
Yeah. So that's like my main philosophy, and he's like the main person that I sort of follow spiritually. I have meditated a lot in life. I think for people that are starting out with meditation, it's really good to start with guided, because when you first start, you just feel so goofy, just sitting there and trying to breathe and, you know, do all of that. Then you can strip back, I think, to just frequency meditation, like putting on a attract love and light frequency, or like a hertz, and just sitting there and just doing deep breath. And then eventually I think you're able to get back to that pure silence.
What does the frequency do? I've never even heard of
Well,
that.
just like, have you ever just listened to any sort of frequency?
Nah, I find that because, like, I remember kids in school used to play like the frequencies on their phone, jack them up super high, and make that ringing noise.
Yeah.
That's like some year 9 boys stuff.
That is some year 9
We'd be in
boy
German class, and someone would hit that, and you'd be like, and the the teachers would blow up.
They're tame now. The kids these days are awful in like they're pulling Hail Hitlers and
Oh
like
no.
It's scary times.
Oh, it is scary times, and that's like, you know, with all the craziness going on in the world right now, and with, you know, anti-Semitism sort of having a terrible renaissance because of the geopolitical landscape right now. Kids will latch onto anything to get a response, right? And now, like, you know, for years it's been different things and sort of things go in and out of trend, but now saying things like Hail Hitler has become like the crazy thing to say to get attention.
Well, completely.
And it's like, fuck, that's not good. Like, because it's now not a joke. It's like, because there's like, you know, silly little jokes that go around schools and things like that. They'll say rude things and swear words and stuff, but this is something that has weight to it.
We move through phases like that, and like, yeah, it's interesting. The adult political climate is reflected in the children's humor. You know, like you're saying, they're talking about this right now because we've got the Palestine-Israel conflict. And so those sort of jokes are arising. And then prior to this, I think one of the biggest, like, because this is very on the internet, obviously the Palestine conflict is very on the internet. Before that, we had the rise of Andrew Tate misogynism. And misogyny. And so I feel that a lot of the boys in that time were really driving that, like, women hatred vibe. From like in like 2021, 2022, like a lot of the kids at the school. I wasn't there then. I was more of like a student then, but that was more what boys were. That was when we had the whole thing of lots of boys' schools making ranking things about women and like sort of those sort of weird situations, and that sort of disrespect. And now that's kind of morphed into like, there's anti-Semitic behaviors happening now, and like, which I suppose consequential in different ways. You know, But it is just really disappointing, and it's scary because they do not know what they're talking about. They just have absolutely no idea what they're talking
Welcome
about.
to school.
Yeah,
Like-
that's all it is. And the teachers aren't educating them about it in class because it's too sensitive
yeah.
in so many ways, and they don't need to know. Like, I do think a lot about how, like, we're in a very privileged place to be able to say, I don't feel like listening to the news right now about this because it's making me feel really sad. Because I certainly was getting like emotional whiplash from being in my For You page on TikTok, and 1 minute I've got a hair roller bronzing makeup tutorial, and the next minute there's a kid asking me to copy the link to save his starving family. And I'm like, and I would of course always do it. Like, I just can't not. Like, even if the video could possibly be fake, I need to just push. I just want to push the pro-Palestine content. I do. And not even from a political perspective, because for me, it's transcended that now. Now it's just gone into human suffering. And now it's about, we need to actually just protect people. Let's put the politics aside for a minute. And like, we're at a point now where children are just malnourished in this country. Like, before, we can worry about that stuff later, but first and foremost, let's just ensure the safety of these people, and then we can start having discussions about who has the land, what about Hamas, what about all of this. But it's just gone beyond that now, because they're just attacking these children and these civilians so aggressively that, like, I don't know, I can't look at it from a political perspective anymore. I can't look at it from, like, who deserves what, who should be what religion's worse, who's actually right. Because now it's just like, just end the suffering, the actual physical suffering. We can mentally suffer. We can have more arguments about it on a theoretical level, but the physical suffering for these children and these people has to stop.
No, I completely agree. And that was so well put. Like, it really was. It's such a complex issue. You were able to just articulate it perfectly. Because
about it a lot.
no. Well, it's it's on the forefront of everyone's mind, especially someone who's up to date with everything as you are.
The journalism.
Exactly. So this is the main thing right now. The issue is, I don't see it getting any better. And I like, I've only started this podcast in the last 2 months, but I've been talking about.
I've noticed there's a trend on the podcast.
Yeah, well, I've been talking about this for years though now,
Yeah.
and this is the thing, I've sort of given up. Like, like Netanyahu does not want those people there. He wants them to literally starve, and then he wants them to potentially flee to Europe if there's any left. Like, that's literally what he wants. And he'll do anything to get it. And no matter how many hostages they return, or no matter how many countries say that they're going to recognize a Palestinian state, and this is all bullshit now.
Yeah.
France are coming out saying they're going to recognize a Palestinian state. Australia's coming out saying they're going to recognize a Palestinian state. There's no more Palestine left. They blew it all up over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
No one said anything about it, right?
No.
Gaza, they'd fly the drones over Gaza. It looks like something out of Call of Duty. The whole nuke just went off, and it's insane. It's literally insane.
Yeah, there's nothing left to reclaim.
No, there's nothing. But that's the thing. They're not going to reclaim it.
No.
Israel's going to take it over. This has been the plan the whole time. And this sounds like some conspiracy
No, it
bullshit.
doesn't.
But there's nothing that you and I can stop going on. And this is the thing. No matter how much I talk about it, no matter how much it's so obvious what's going on in Gaza right now, that this is just literally just like a takeover campaign.
Yeah.
Right? No matter how obvious that is, there's nothing anyone can do about
Well,
it.
it's also why, like, all these countries where all these people are rallying against it, nobody's actually stepping in. I mean, America.
Well, no, what are they going to do? What if you're Macron and you're like, oh, like, this Palestine stuff's really bad, we're going to step in. What are you going to do?
Jack shit. No.
What are you going to do?
Because they'll just stop you. Because there's like nothing.
There's too much. It's like the US and Israel, like they're too powerful. They're too strong. Like, Australia can't send military there or challenge them, and there's no resolution to this.
And
like, it doesn't feel like there's going to be.
What's important, I think, is that people, like, when we're looking at it from what the hatred that it incites from a religious perspective, like the way it makes people hate Jewish people and hate Muslim people, is that we need to look at these figures like Hamas and like, what is this man's name, the leader of Israel?
Bibi Netanyahu.
Is he the one who's driving it, or who was the person?
Yeah, no,
you
he's the
mentioned
prime
before?
minister. No.
Was he who you mentioned?
Yeah,
before?
exactly.
Yeah, I didn't know who he was. Him and them are entities that should not be looked at with religious justification. Like, nothing about it. We shouldn't be even attaching Islam to Hamas. We shouldn't even be attaching the Jewish religion to him, because it's just creating a really bad name for something that isn't actually that drowned in evil. These people just go under the guise of it and they use it, and it's just then associated with them. But these are just bad people. These aren't bad religions. These are just bad people. And they're just going to do bad things. And so just in terms of like all the hate and all the anti-Semitism that's happening and all of that, take away the religious issues. If this is this man's plan all along, it's got nothing to do with what his belief systems are. It's got nothing to do with what the Muslim belief systems are. This was these people's plans all along, and he's just going to wipe them out anyway. And so just seeing them as bad people and this is a bad situation rather than attaching all of the terrorist ideas and things to it, I think would benefit everybody. Like, I just think people just need to have a bit more empathy. I just can't believe how logically some people still look at it from just...
There's the thing is, I understand what you're saying,
Yeah.
but enshrined in everything that you just said is so much complexity as well,
Yes.
right? Because you go, okay, Hamas separated from religion, but then you go, hold on, we have to take a step back. Who's funding Hamas, right?
Yeah.
Iran is funding Hamas, right? And so
Yeah.
you go the Ayatollah Khomeini, who's like, the dictator of Iran, right? I can hear Harry making noises behind me, but what do you call it? Who's the supreme leader of Iran and controls a lot of the foreign policy and policy that goes on there, and is sort of like the head of that Islam state. They're pushing a certain sort of narrative as well,
Yes.
right? But now, as you said, this shouldn't be a matter of religion. This is a situation that doesn't involve preconceived notions. We can see it in front of our eyes that human suffering is occurring, and we should put a stop to it straight away. But I don't think.
it's not possible.
This is the thing. This is why we actually have some hope this week, because the Ukraine war looks like there's at least. I'm not going to say the end's in sight, but there's a roadmap to get there now.
Okay.
Because before we were just in the abyss where Ukraine would randomly attack Russia, Russia would randomly attack Ukraine, and there wasn't any communication happening. Since, I don't know if you know this, very recently Putin has met with Trump in Alaska.
Saw their little...
And it was very, very productive. This doesn't mark the end of the war. There's no reason to celebrate right now. But I think this is the first step in the right direction. And I think that is a conflict that's more likely to end rather than the Israel-Palestine one.
I agree.
I feel like Israel-Palestine, Israel have literally just been doing whatever they want to Gaza for 2 years, and no one stopped them.
No.
If no one stopped them in the last 2 years, I don't think anyone's going to stop them for the next 2 years. And if they go and do this for 4 years, they're just going to completely own Gaza. Those people who used to live there are going to be migrants in Europe somewhere, or they're going to be dead.
Russia's not going about it in the same manner that Israel are going about it. Like, obviously, they're both... There's war. There's still war crime. There's still all of that. But I do feel that there is this, like you said, this ruthless energy. Like, we're happy to get rid of everything as long as we can have it. Whereas, like, the Russia and Ukraine situation, it's a bit more like, let me attack you, let me attack you, let me attack you. And so I do see how there's strategy, and so there is an end in sight. I'm surprised that the session was so productive, because from what I was seeing from, like, the news conferences, it seemed like when he came out on stage, he said he didn't really have anything to say, and like they didn't get very far. But obviously there's been more discussion, or at least like they've disclosed more information now that they maybe had to confirm at the time. But it's so funny. I did think Trump looked so like Trump puts himself out as very like scary and intimidating, and he just looked like such a little baby next to Putin. I just thought Putin looked so much more, but I mostly get the funny stuff like of them in the car together, like little edits of them being in like a secret gay relationship. Same with Kim Jong-un. That's like a massive little queer couple, Donald and Kim Jong-un. I love all those edits. It's so cute. But but then again, I'm taking the piss out of something really massive, right? That's like a really, really massive moment. But I think that's how people are coping as well with all of this.
100%, right? And like that's the thing with Trump in office. Every single time he goes out there, it's a reality TV show.
Oh yeah,
and you're always kind of like judging his performance.
It's annoying orange.
Yeah. No, you're so right. That's a good way to put it. But I think this is the thing. We want to criticize Trump and say he's a bad leader. He does this and that. Look at the Ukraine war. The Ukraine war started in 2022. The Biden administration, all those amazing people in the like left field government, right, that didn't communicate with Putin at all. Let like hundreds of thousands of people essentially die without really putting putting pressure on ending the war.
Yeah.
And potentially a lot of people talk about how Russia was provoked to get into this conflict in the first place, and that happened during the Obama years. So there's a lot to this story, but I think Trump actually not reconciling with Putin, but at least bringing him to the table, understanding what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And this is the thing that holds it back are these territorial concessions, right? They're
Yeah.
talking about, two very specific regions, Donbass and Lugansk, and there's a lot of, I feel like from the story from the outside, what seems to be happening is these cities don't necessarily mind if they're Russian or Ukrainian, but this issue is being used to fund a proxy war supported by the US through Ukraine to essentially keep the war machine going, keep the Russia evil, Putin bad narrative going, right? And Putin is not a weak man, so he's never gonna back down. He's always gonna respond.
The political ideals of his country.
But we're playing with the lives of every Ukrainian right now. Russia has a legitimate nuclear arsenal, and if we continue to poke the bear and destroy their ships and destroy their aircraft carriers and all these crazy things that they've been doing recently, right? Putin's gonna hit the button, and that's gonna be blood on American politicians' hands for not handling this better.
Like that is one of the only good things I think that, like, I'm obviously, for so many reasons, one being as a woman, I'm obviously not a fan of Donald Trump. There's like just so many reasons for me not to be a fan.
I can understand that.
But one of the only good things he brings to the table in my eyes is this fact he is a bad person, because he is friends with these other bad people, or at least he gives them the chance to talk, right? Like him and Putin, you don't necessarily know that Biden would have been so okay with having that conversation, right? But because he's, I want to be part of this sort of big evil group with like Putin, Trumpy, Kim Jong-un, they're all trying to give him that same dictator, I rule the country vibe. Because he wants to be part of the rule the country vibe, he wants to have ins with these guys, its own little way. And so it's kind of nice to think that maybe he has a friendship with horrible people, like for the safety of Americans and for the safety of the Western world, I guess, in that case. But that's about the only redeeming quality I can really think of.
I think, no, that's definitely positive, because no matter who the president is, they need to be on good terms
with everyone,
right? And that requires open communication, that requires deals both on the trade side, on the peace side, humanitarian side, and that constant, like political flow between nations. That's important, right? And I feel like what Australia isn't doing enough is capitalizing on this opportunity that we have in the US right now, because this is how I see it. The landscape in the US for the next 4 years is very transitory. You think about things like crypto, right? Blowing up right now because the Trump administration is all in, right? And little things like that are going to become very important. They're very pro-American manufacturing, very pro certain Western ideological ideas, maybe some more Republican than others, but, right, that's what they're representing. But we're living in a very, transition period sort of a time is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And Australia could benefit from that.
Why don't we try to use the things that aren't necessarily awful, but are just, like you said, the crypto market, right? It's not an awful thing. Why don't we capitalize off what's actually occurring?
And why don't we not use Trump, but use all this transition that's going on to improve the relationship with the US? Improve a lot of the things that we do together as a nation, whether that's from a military perspective, from a trade perspective, et cetera, and build that bond. Because Trump is one of relationships, right? If he thinks the Prime Minister of Australia sucks and the Prime Minister of Australia never does anything good for him, right? Then that's going to be in his head. He's going to put that on his Twitter, and it's not going to be a good look for the country.
He knows his
right?
name.
Like exactly. He doesn't care,
No.
but he could, right? And that's a choice that the Albanese government can and should make, because they have the power. They have the power to demand Trump's time, and they have the power to advocate for everyday Australians and to put our best foot forward and to get as much help from the US and to guide, because the Western world needs to work together, otherwise we're fucked. Like that is a number one source of truth. I know that for a fact. And if we continue to be on this path where we hate America because of Trump or because of certain policies that they implement or because of a certain way that they act, like that only creates more divide within, you know, our neighbors, our friends, right? People that are like, you know, nations that are sort of there to protect us as well, right?
Completely.
It's only driving more divide, more chaos, and becoming a scarier reality for everyday Australians.
I think that very, very, very well said, and a perspective that I have not heard before, like about, you know, you using Trump. I don't mind using the term using because I think it's fitting. But I just think the main thing is there's like back to what you're saying about division and like hating America. I think that's one of just the current world's and current humanity's biggest downfalls at the moment is just so much division and so much polarization in view, in opinion, in, you know, what you're fed on the internet because of the algorithm, and we're just pushed further and further and further apart, and there's a very low amount of centralists now, and or people who are willing to have discussions with people that disagree with them, because everybody is so defensive about their opinion. And you know, it's either you're all in, you're all out, you hate Trump or you love him, you're either a full-on Republican, pro-lifer, God bless America, or you are an absolute lefty, woke person.
Yes.
And so I think it's difficult because as somebody who I don't feel like I'm either of those things, sometimes people, they box you into one or the other because they can't agree with the fact that you're in that middle ground.
And that's how they spread the division.
Yeah, and division, it helps control.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Right? Because, okay, so I reckon 95% of people actually land in the middle.
Me
And
too.
then you have crazy rights, lefts, whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
Right? But most people are good people and can agree on fundamental core values. And a lot of those are being like, you know, up for debate these days.
Yeah.
Right? And like a lot of those aren't guaranteed. Even in Australia, when it comes to crazy things like our own privacy, our own health, we've talked about a lot of the like issues that our education system faces, our medical system, our aged care system, even things like, you know, a lot of people thought overpopulation was going to be a big problem.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about not being able to sustain our own population. We're not going to have enough people to replace the industry that, you know, Australia
Existed before,
requires.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's, you know, we're facing new problems all the time. And, you know, it's, I don't feel like any of it gets enough limelight. Like, I don't feel like people in government are necessarily working hard enough to fix the problems that everyday people face.
Everyday people.
That's like, you know, that's a little bit about what this show is about too.
Yeah.
Like highlighting, you know, the struggles of everyday people, to point out like, hey, this is a problem that exists. If you don't know about it, now you do. But it's also to like tell everyday stories about people that you'd never hear from before, you know,
Yeah.
whose stories would, you know, maybe go untold.
People who aren't necessarily important or prominent, right?
Exactly.
Because I mean, everything is important. And what you are uncovering is the issues that everyday people are facing. It would also be really interesting to get some people on the pod who, like, you know, aren't from the area really, or from like quite a rural Australia, because obviously what would arise would be a very, very different conversation. And a lot of us around here, yeah, we are dowsing in our northern beaches of privilege. And so it would
So
be really,
true.
really interesting to see what other people from the countries, or other countries too, if you have any foreign friends, sort of come on and say about things like this as well.
No, well, that's the thing. Every person, every interview that we do is a new perspective,
Yeah.
which teaches me more, which is more fun for the audience to have, etc. Right? And you've added to that perspective tonight, Holly, and it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Is there anything else that you want to say, talk about, anything
No,
that we
I'm
didn't
very,
touch?
very satisfied. I haven't had a time check for a while, but I'm feeling like I've probably hit a pretty good.
Pretty good end.
Beautiful.
Thanks, everyone. Catch
Thank
up.
you so much.